Welcome back to Hot Air with me, Joshua Robert. And today we are going to talk about something that quietly controls far more of our lives than most of us realize. Have you ever said yes when every part of you wants to say no? Have you ever stayed in a job that has absolutely destroyed your mental health because you felt guilty about leaving? Or have you ever gone to a family gathering, covered another shift, answered another late night work email, or kept someone else's peace at the expense of your own because you couldn't stand the thought of disappointing them? And if you're sitting there nodding your head thinking, fuck yes, all of the above, I mean, congratulations, you are a human being. And the funny thing is that most of us do not wake up every morning thinking, how can I make everyone else happy today instead of me? It just happens. We spend years learning that being agreeable makes people like us and being helpful earns approval, and putting everyone else's needs before our own somehow makes us a good person. But at what point does being kind become abandoning yourself? And why do we feel guilty for choosing our own mental health? Makes no sense. Why does saying no feel so uncomfortable? And why do we care so much about disappointing our boss or our parents, our friends, or complete strangers while somehow becoming perfectly comfortable disappointing ourselves over and over again? Well, today we are going to dive into the psychology behind people pleasing, why your brain is literally wired to seek approval, how guilt tricks you into believing that you're doing something wrong when you're actually just breaking old patterns, which I find so interesting when you break that down, why you are not responsible for managing everyone else's emotions, and how to finally stop living your life according to everyone else's expectations. And as always, this is not about becoming selfish or telling everyone to completely fuck off and like disappearing into the woods to become a boundary setting like forest witch, which I say these things a lot, what it's not supposed to be about, but that actually sounds really fun. This is actually about understanding your own mind, building healthier relationships, and creating a life that feels like it belongs to you, which it should. And before we jump in, make sure you're following me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod. Visit my website, hotairwithjoshuarobert.com, to shop my merch, submit your listener stories and topic suggestions. And I just realized I have these little stickers on my mic stand. I've been thinking about getting an upper eyelid surgery because I got a lot of extra skin there. So I bought those stickers that go above above your eyelids. And honestly, they work so good. I'm like, I could save thousands of dollars and not get surgery and just wear these stickers. And I guess I was recording an episode a few weeks ago when I tried them and I stuck them on the mic stand after I took them off. That's hysterical. Okay. Anyway, if you've ever spent your entire life apologizing for existing, this episode is for you. Grab your notepad, grab your healing hat, put it on, and let's hit it. HOTAIR, hot takes therapy, no filter. Say what I mean. HOTAIR, let's be real. You're listening to Hot Air. Part 1. Why you can't say no. Now, I want to start today's episode with a question, and I don't want you to answer it too quickly because I think that almost all of us have been quietly guilty of this, or maybe not so quietly guilty of it. When was the last time you said yes to something that you absolutely did not want to do? And again, maybe it was covering a shift at work when you were absolutely exhausted. Maybe it was going to another birthday dinner on one night that you desperately needed to stay home and recharge. Maybe it was letting a family member dump all of their problems on you for several hours when you barely had the energy to deal with your own. Or maybe, and this one is a big one, it was staying in a job that has been making you miserable for weeks, months, years, because you could not shake this overwhelming feeling that leaving would somehow make you not only a bad employee, but a bad person, or that you would be letting down your coworkers, your boss, the entire team. And isn't that kind of fascinating, right? We will sacrifice, pardon me, our own happiness, our own mental health, our peace. Like we do it for months and years. Like some people do it for their whole entire lives because we are worried about someone else feeling inconvenienced for, I don't know, a couple weeks or maybe not even being inconvenienced at all. When you actually say it out loud, it sounds crazy, right? Trust me, I'm not saying this from a magical mountain. Again, no magical mountain here where I have mastered boundaries and now spend my days saying like no left, right, and center with the confidence of fucking Meryl Streep accepting another Oscar. Like I am recovering from years of people pleasing, okay? There should be an AA for people pleasing. Like honestly, I still catch myself doing it. There have been so many moments in life where someone has asked me for something, and before my brain has even had time to process whether I wanted to do it, my mouth has already gone like, "Yeah, absolutely, count me in." Then about 10 minutes later, I'm driving home thinking like, "Joshua, really? You literally did it again. You didn't even consult yourself and you said yes to something you absolutely do not feel like doing." And sometimes I think my people pleasing, honestly, it's like faster than Wi-Fi. It just happens. And what's interesting is that we usually wear it like a badge of honor. And we say things like, I'm just like a really nice person, or I'm always there for people, or I hate letting people down. And do not get me wrong, those are beautiful qualities. I do think I'm a nice person and I'm there for people. The world needs kind people. The world needs generous people. But kindness and self-abandonment are not the same thing. And somewhere along the way, a lot of us have blurred that line, crossed that line, forgot about that line. And here's something that I've learned a lot lately. If saying yes to everyone else constantly requires saying no to yourself, that's not kindness anymore. That's self neglect wearing a cute kindness outfit. So, why do we do it? Riddle me this. I have an answer for you. So you don't need to think too long. This is where psychology gets really cool and I love boiling it down. It makes so much sense. A lot of people think that they're people pleasers because they are weak or because they lack confidence. And I actually don't think that that is true at all. I think that our brain is doing exactly what it has evolved to do. So come on a journey with me. Let's go back thousands and thousands of years, okay? You are living in a tiny tribe. There are no grocery stores, no Amazon Prime, no Starbucks. If the people around you decided they did not like you anymore and kicked you out of the tribe, you were not just lonely, you were probably dead. You were going to die, okay? You couldn't hunt by yourself. You couldn't defend yourself. You couldn't survive harsh winters alone. And belonging, it wasn't just emotionally important, it was literally the difference between life and death. And your brain, now, thousands of years later, remembers that. And not consciously, obviously. You're not like, "Oh, I remember when I would have been in a tribe," or whatever. You're probably not sitting in a meeting thinking if I don't stay late tonight, a saber-toothed tiger is like definitely gonna eat me. That's not the vibe I'm talking about. But your nervous system still treats rejection as a very serious threat. And that's why criticism feels so uncomfortable. That's why disappointing people makes your stomach drop. That's why getting left on red can somehow convince a fully grown adult that their entire personality is defective. Our brains are running ancient survival software in a completely modern world. And like also, honestly, our brains are a little bit dramatic. And by a little, I mean a lot of bit dramatic. Your boss emails you saying, "Can we talk tomorrow?" How many of you have got that email? I know I have. And your brain immediately goes like, "Well, it's been a good run. I guess I'll start living under a bridge now because I'm going to be unemployed, living on the streets." Like, no, Josh, relax. I have these thoughts every week. Every week, I think I'm going to get fired. I still got my gigs, okay? But maybe they just forgot the password to the Canva account or something. Like, our brains always assume the worst because for most of human history, assuming the worst kept you alive. But now that same survival instinct is making us answer work emails on vacation because we don't want anyone to think that we are difficult. We're not running from saber-toothed tigers, we're running from work emails. Then there's your childhood to bring into the mix because that always has something to do with something. And I think this is where so many of us unknowingly got programmed. So think back for a hot second. Were you the easy kid, the responsible one, the one that teachers love because you never caused trouble? Did adults constantly tell you like how mature you were? Did you become the child who solved everyone else's problems because you learned that very early on being helpful earned praise? And I hate when people are like, "Oh, you're so mature for your age." So fucking 8-year-old, let the 8-year-old be an 8-year-old. Like I laugh about those things because I obviously used to love hearing like Josh is so easy. Josh is like so funny and he never complains and he's so creative and helpful. Like who doesn't love hearing that? But looking back, I'm like maybe somebody should have like checked on Joshua and been like, "Are you being a child and enjoying yourself?" Cuz sometimes what adults celebrate isn't emotional health. Sometimes they're simply celebrating convenience, and trust me, if I was a parent, I would too. I'd be like, "Great, my kid is quiet in the other room reading a book or reading the dictionary, super." But that's not helping the kid be a kid. If you're the kid who never asks for anything, never pushes back, never expresses anger, never creates conflict, adults often describe you as wonderful. Meanwhile, you've quietly learned a very dangerous lesson is that people love me most when I do not have needs. Like, think about that. Okay. That lesson follows people into adulthood all the time. Now, you're 35 years old apologizing because someone else bumped into you. Like, bitch, get out the way. Okay. You're saying sorry to a chair after you stubbed your toe on it. Like, chair, get out of the way. And like, I'm laughing, and some of you might be laughing, but you've done it, and I've done it. And that's why it's funny. We all have. And because I'm Canadian, I genuinely think that some Canadians are born apologizing. And again, as one myself, I feel qualified enough to say that. Like, we say sorry a lot. I've been in America long enough to say sorry a little bit less, but like, it's a lot. Okay. The problem is, though, after years of living this way, approval slowly becomes part of your identity. You stop asking yourself, what do I want? And you start asking, what will make everyone else happy? And you become so good at anticipating other people's needs that you lose complete touch with your own. Then someone asks you like a very simple question, like, where do you want to go for dinner? Like when people used to ask me that, like I still freak out sometimes, but I'm like, I don't know. And your honest answer is, I don't know. Not because you don't like food, but because you spent years practicing everyone else's preferences instead of your own. So you actually don't know just because you haven't made a decision for yourself in a long ass time. And that's the scary thing about people pleasing. It doesn't just exhaust you, it disconnects you from yourself. So, before we move on, because there's a lot to get through today, a lot of good stuff. I want to leave you with a challenge. I don't want you to start saying no to everyone tomorrow. That's not realistic, and you'd probably have a panic attack halfway through the day. But instead, I want you to become aware. So every time someone asks you something this week, take a quick pause before you answer. Even if it's only for 3 seconds, in those 3 seconds, ask yourself if I knew this person would not be disappointed, what would I actually want to say? Just like consult yourself for a hot sec. It doesn't need to be that deep. Maybe you do it once a day. Maybe it's not every question someone asks you. That's a lot. But maybe once a day, just ask, what would you actually want? And don't worry about whether you say yes or no yet. Like, let's not get there. That's coming later in the episode. But right now, I just want you to meet the version of yourself that's being buried underneath years of like obligation. Okay. Because I have a feeling that they're still in there somewhere being like, please let me do what I want to do. They've just been so busy keeping everyone else happy that they have not had much of a chance to speak up. Part two, guilt isn't proof that you're doing something wrong. Let's talk about guilt for a minute, shall we? I think guilt is or has one of the best publicists in history. Maybe it is the best publicist. Like, seriously, we've somehow been convinced that if we feel guilty about something, it automatically means we've made the wrong decision. And sometimes that is correct. But I don't know who blanket statement this, but I'd like to have a word with them, okay? Listen to me. Guilt doesn't always mean you're doing something bad unless you're cheating on your partner and they told you that was a no-no. Like, that's a no-no, right? I think about how often we say things like, I just feel so guilty, almost as if that's the end of the conversation, as if guilt itself is evidence enough. And we don't stop to ask why we feel guilty. We don't question whether the guilt actually belongs there. We just assume, well, if I feel bad, I must be bad or have done something bad. And that is not a very safe way to live because feelings are real, but they aren't always accurate. And I've said it before, your feelings are not always facts. Like I can feel anxious before getting on an airplane. That does not mean the plane is going to crash. I can feel insecure walking into a room full of strangers, but that doesn't mean that everyone's going to hate me. And I can absolutely feel guilty for choosing myself, even when choosing myself is the right thing to do. I'll give you an example of that. Okay. I think a lot of people can probably relate to this. Let's say you've been working somewhere for 3 years and you have been loyal, you have worked overtime, you've answered all the emails after hours, you have skipped out on your vacations, you've covered shifts, you've bent over backwards because you wanted to be a good employee. But now your mental health is in the gutter. It's on the fritz, it's on the back burner, and you dread Sunday evenings because you know, well, Monday's coming. Okay. You can't sleep. You're anxious all the time. You don't feel like yourself anymore. Then another opportunity comes and maybe out of nowhere, and you realize you need to leave your current gig for your own well being. And what happens? Do you get excited? Like, usually not. Most people immediately start thinking about everyone else. They think that their boss is going to be so stressed out if they leave. They think, who's going to take over my workload? Or they're going to think that their boss is going to think that they're ungrateful, or they're going to feel terrible leaving them like this. What do you mean, like this? And notice what's missing from those statements, from that conversation that you're having with yourself. You are missing from the conversation. You are talking about and considering everyone else. The person whose life is actually being affected, which is yours, you're not even thinking about. Like, that's wild. And we all do it. You've reached the point where your own mental health is screaming for help. And somehow your first instinct is to still worry about whether your resignation is going to inconvenience like your manager or your coworkers or your team. I've done this, okay? More times than I would like to admit. There have been moments in my multiple careers, because I've had 7,000 of them, where I knew something wasn't right anymore. But instead of asking myself, is this healthy for me? I kept asking, like, what will everybody think if I leave? And I felt guilty before I would even like considered handing in my notice. I was already apologizing in my own head for making a decision that I hadn't actually made, or a decision that was objectively better for my life. Or even when you like the job, but you know you deserve more money, or you want some time off, or you want to take an extended vacation, depending on what your job is, but you feel bad asking your managers, even though you know that you deserve that shit. Okay, however, one day I had a little bit of a realization that did change a lot of this perspective, which is businesses replace people. Easy. That's it. Every single day. If your boss got another opportunity tomorrow that was better for the company, they would make the decision they believed was best for the business. Not because they are cruel, because that's how businesses work. So, why do we believe that we're selfish for making the decision that's best for our own lives? And I'm not saying that all employers are evil. Like, I've had a lot of incredible coworkers and managers and bosses. I've worked with wonderful people. I've also worked with some terrible people. But I think sometimes we accidentally confuse loyalty with self sacrifice. Those are not the same thing. Loyalty is simply showing up and working hard and treating people with respect and honoring your commitments. That is loyalty. Self sacrifice is staying somewhere that is destroying your mental health because you're afraid that someone else might be disappointed if you leave. And I'm telling you, especially in the corporate world, they will fire you in a second and put someone else in there who's going to have a lower wage and work harder, like in a heartbeat. Okay. And sometimes they might be sad that you're going to leave, but they're going to find someone to replace you in 12 seconds and forget you even existed. That's the reality of the world that we live in. Now, I also think we need to distinguish between two completely different kinds of guilt because these get mixed together constantly. Now, the first is healthy guilt. Healthy guilt is actually quite useful. It's your conscience. It's the feeling you get when you've genuinely hurt somebody or lied, betrayed someone's trust, or acted in a way that does not align with your values. And healthy guilt says, like, okay, hey, you need to make this right. You did something wrong. You're a bad boy. That's a good thing though. That guilt is a good thing. It helps us become better people and be aware. Something that serial killers do not possess, okay? But then there's conditioned guilt. And conditioned guilt has nothing to do with your values. It has everything to do with breaking old patterns. You say no to covering another shift for the 500th time and you feel guilty. You maybe don't respond to a text immediately. Like sometimes I will be like, I need to respond to this later. And I feel guilty, even though I know I need a hot second. Or you don't spend Christmas exactly the way that your family expects. That's a big thing for a lot of people. And you feel guilty. You decide maybe not to attend like every social event that you're invited to because you're absolutely exhausted. And guess what? You feel guilty. Or maybe you choose your mental health over someone else's expectations and you feel guilty. I think you get the point here, right? Now, that guilt that we just covered, that guilt isn't telling you that you've done something wrong. It's telling you that you've done something different. And I mean, you know this if you've been listening. Your brain hates different. It likes comfy, okay? Like remember what we talked about in the last segment. Your brain loves familiarity because familiarity feels safe. So when you start changing lifelong habits, especially habits that have earned you approval from a lot of other people, your nervous system freaks the fuck out. It says like, "Wait, we have never done this before. Are you sure? Are you sure about this, Josh? People might not like this, Josh." And because we've been conditioned to mistake comfort for danger, and because we've been conditioned to mistake discomfort for danger, we immediately think that we should go back to old behavior. And it's kind of like starting to exercise after years of sitting on the couch. Your muscles hurt, they are sore, they are uncomfortable, but nobody says, well, I guess exercise is bad for me because it feels uncomfortable. We understand that discomfort in exercise is part of growth. Yet emotionally, when this happens, when we compare that emotionally, we completely forget that lesson. And I think boundaries work the exact same way. The first time that you tell somebody no, it feels really weird. And the first time that you don't apologize for taking care of yourself, it feels really weird. And the first time you leave work exactly when your shift ends instead of staying another hour for free, weird. The first time you choose your own peace over someone else's expectations, incredibly weird. And not because it's wrong, because it is unfamiliar. And one of my favorite questions to ask myself now, whenever guilt shows up, is did I actually do something wrong? Or did I just disappoint someone? Those are not the same question. Okay. If I lied to someone, yes, I probably have something to apologize for. Okay. If I intentionally hurt someone, of course, I should feel guilty. If I broke a promise, then yes, let's own that. But if someone is disappointed because I protected my time, chose my mental health, declined an invitation, or made a decision that was best for my life, that's a very different situation and a very different type of guilt. Like, people are allowed to feel disappointed because you didn't come. I'm allowed to make decisions, and people are going to feel how they're going to feel. Both things can exist at the same time. Of course, your bestie's going to be disappointed you didn't come to dinner, but if they're pissed at you because you're taking time for yourself because you've been working your ass off and you've been working long ass days and you got two podcasts going and a dog and you're trying to do more art and write a book and decorate your apartment and they're mad at you, well, screw them, honestly. That didn't happen to me, but that's just my life as an example. So we have spent our entire lives believing that our job was to make sure that everybody around us stayed comfortable. And the second that someone isn't happy, we we rush in to fix it. We explain ourselves, we over apologize, we negotiate, we soften the boundary until it barely exists. But here's something I've been reminding myself of a lot lately, and maybe you need to hear it too. Just because someone does not like your decision does not mean it was the wrong decision. Say it again. Just because someone doesn't like your decision doesn't mean it's the wrong decision. People are allowed to disagree with you and your boundaries. I talked about boundaries a lot. They are for you. People are allowed to disagree. They can wish you stayed at the party longer. They can wish that you said yes to the invitation. They can wish that you are still making life easy for them. That does not automatically make your choice selfish. Sometimes it simply means that your choice no longer benefits them the way that it used to. And that can feel weird to them, but this isn't about them. It's about you. So I have another exercise for you this week or whenever you want to do it. And I think this one has the potential to change the way that you make decisions forever. I need like I need a soundboard here to insert dramatic music. So the next time that guilt shows up, and obviously we know that it will, I don't want you to ask yourself, why do I feel guilty? Instead, ask yourself, did I violate one of my values? Or did I simply violate someone else's expectations? Because again, those are two very different things. There is one that calls for an apology, and there is one that calls for courage. When you violate your values by saying less, you need to apologize to yourself. And when you quote unquote violate someone's expectations of you, that calls for courage. Part three, you are not responsible for managing anyone else's emotions. Now, I think this next idea has changed my life more than almost anything else that I have learned in therapy. And a lot of this stuff in this episode, I still remind myself of all the time because it doesn't come naturally to any of us. But you are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. And I'm sure some of you just clenched, whether it's your jaw or your booty hole, some of you clenched a little because if you're anything like me, your immediate reaction is like, well, isn't that kind of selfish? But see, that's exactly the problem. Okay. Somewhere along the way, a lot of us were taught that being a good person meant making sure that everyone around us stayed happy, they stayed comfy, and emotionally they were okay. And if somebody was upset, it became our job to fix it. And if somebody was angry, we immediately wondered what we had done wrong. And if somebody was disappointed, we started negotiating with ourselves to figure out how we could change our decisions so they would not feel that way anymore. We basically became emotional janitors walking around, cleaning up everyone else's feelings while our own emotions sat in the corner just collecting dust. I want you to think about how often you have done this. And maybe your friend is upset because you can't make it to dinner. So instead of simply saying, like, I'm sorry, I can't make it, you launch into a 10-minute explanation with three apologies, a detailed calendar breakdown, and a signed affidavit proving that you're not secretly a terrible person. Or maybe your parents don't love whatever decision it is that you made. And suddenly you're trying to convince them it's the right choice instead of simply making peace with the fact that they don't have to agree with you. Or maybe your boss asks if you can work this weekend and you've already made plans, but instead of saying, I'm unavailable, you somehow end up canceling your plans because you couldn't stand the thought of your boss sounding disappointed on the phone. Like, it's amazing how quickly we rearrange our own lives just to avoid someone else's temporary discomfort. And what's funny is that we don't do this because we are weak. We do it because we're empathetic, and empathy is an incredible quality. Sometimes I got too much of it. It allows us to connect with people and understand them and care about what they're experiencing and going through. But somewhere along the line, that empathy has quietly turned into more of a responsibility. And again, empathy and responsibility, two different things. I can understand why my boss is frustrated that I'm leaving the gig because I'm a badass, but I quit because I found something better. And I can appreciate why my parents are sad that I'm moving to a different country. I can recognize why my friend wishes I had come to their birthday party. That's empathy. But the second I start believing it is my responsibility to remove those feelings from them, I have crossed into a territory that was never mine to begin with. I am not responsible for their feelings. And I heard somebody explain this once in a way that sort of rewired the way that my brain was processing this. So they said that your job is to deliver information honestly and respectfully. What somebody does with that information belongs to them. If I tell someone I cannot attend an event because I need a night to myself, I've done my job. If they are disappointed, that is okay. They are allowed to be disappointed. They're allowed to wish that I would have said yes. They're allowed to have feelings. Adults are supposed to have feelings. The problem is that people pleasers think that every uncomfortable emotion that is happening within a 50-foot radius has somehow become their personal responsibility. So we walk around collecting emotional debt that has never belonged to us in the first place. And a lot of stuff lately that I've been talking about, social media comes into it. And I feel like it makes it worse because we become obsessed with making sure that everyone understands us, that somebody disagrees with you online and suddenly you're writing like a 12 paragraph response in the comment section to prove that you're still a good person. I did this the other day. Somebody misunderstands your intentions and you spend hours replaying the conversation in your head thinking of like better ways you could have explained yourself. And can I save you a tremendous amount of energy? Not everyone is going to understand you. Not everyone is going to agree with you. And if there's really that many trolls in the comment section, they're moved on to trolling other people. But here's the one that's hardest for people pleasers. Okay. Not everyone is going to like you. I know that's horrifying. Okay. Somebody call the authorities. Okay. If your goal is to go through life making sure that every single person approves of every decision you make, people on social media, your boss, your friends, your family, you're signing up for a game you literally could not win. And I realized that a really long time ago that not everyone's going to like me. And that lifted a lot of weight off my shoulders. And I've noticed this in my own life a lot, especially when I've made career decisions. There have been times where I've wanted to pursue something that excited me or step away from something that no longer felt aligned. And instead of feeling excited, I immediately started worrying about everyone else's reaction. Would these people be angry? What would my boss think? Would they think I wasn't grateful? Would they be stressed? Like, notice how quickly my own dreams completely disappear from the conversation. And suddenly I was asking whether this decision was right for my future. I was asking whether everyone else would be emotionally comfortable with it. Like that that's a miserable way to make life decisions because if your happiness is dependent on everyone else approving of your choices, then your happiness will always belong to everyone else. And one of the hardest things I have probably ever learned is that disappointment is not an emergency. Okay. I think people need to try and digest that. Disappointment isn't an emergency. When someone is disappointed, nothing has gone wrong, right? Nobody needs CPR for disappointment. The earth has not stopped spinning. A human being is simply experiencing an emotion. And believe it or not, they're probably more capable of handling that emotion than you've given them the credit for. Every time that you rush to rescue these people from disappointment, you're accidentally sending yourself the message that discomfort must always be avoided. Let them be disappointed. Okay. That's not how emotionally healthy adults live when you're rushing in to fix that disappointment. Emotionally healthy adults allow themselves to feel disappointed, allow others to feel disappointed, and then process it and move on. They don't require everyone else to reorganize their lives to prevent them from ever feeling uncomfortable. So, not surprisingly, I have another thing for you to practice this week. So, the next time someone reacts negatively to one of your decisions, pause before you explain. before you defend or apologize. Instead, ask yourself, is this my emotion or am I trying to carry their disappointment? You might be surprised how often you are picking up that emotional baggage that is theirs and does not belong to you. You can be compassionate without becoming responsible, and you can love people without living for them. And you can care deeply about someone's feelings while still making the decision that was best for your own life. And those things are not selfish, they are called boundaries. And contrary to what your people pleasing brain has been telling you for 7,000 years, boundaries do not push healthy people away. They simply reveal who is benefiting from you not having any boundaries. Take that in for a second. Part four, stop auditioning for everyone. I want you to ask yourself a question. And again, I do not want you to answer it right away because I think it's one of those questions that sounds very simple until you sit with it. So sit with this, okay? Who are you when nobody needs anything from you? Okay? Seriously, strip away your job, strip away being someone's employee, someone's partner, someone's son or daughter, someone's best friend, someone's therapist, because let's be honest, some of you have accidentally become your friends group unpaid therapist. Me, I think I'm a therapist because I have a podcast. I'm fucking not. But strip away all of the roles that you play for everyone else, okay? Who's left? What do what do you enjoy? What excites you? What kind of life do you actually want to live with all of those labels aside? Because I think a lot of us have spent so much time, so much of our lives becoming exactly what everyone else needed us to be that we've lost touch with the person underneath all of it. And I read something recently that really resonated with me. And it said, don't spend your life auditioning for a role you've already been cast in. And I was like, damn, wow, that's exactly what people pleasers do. We spend our entire lives auditioning. We're constantly trying to prove that we're worthy of being loved and respected, appreciated, or included. We auditioned at work by being the employee who never complains. We auditioned in friendships by always being available. We audition in our own families by trying to not rock the boat. We even audition in romantic relationships by pretending that we're okay with things that secretly break our hearts because we're too terrified that if we are like too much or open up or tell the other person to stop, then the other person is going to leave us. And listen, I used to do this until about 2 years ago. And definitely once I started the pod, I stopped doing the people pleasing thing and life shifted. It shifted a fucking lot. A lot of relationships will shift if you stop people pleasing. It's going to feel weird, scary, uncomfortable. There's going to be a lot of friction. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing because now my life, I love my life. I'm obsessed with my life. I am obsessed with the strong relationships I have. I'm okay with strong relationships I thought I had that have now become a little bit more surface level or less frequent interactions. Some relationships went away completely, and I've never been more peaceful. It was scary for a little bit, but I try to remind myself that that discomfort was just growth and me stopping to make stopping trying to make everyone else happy and just focusing in on what I wanted. All that people pleasing, I didn't even realize my whole life, but it was so exhausting. And the craziest part is that most of the people that we are trying desperately to impress probably are not thinking about us as much as we think they are. Like, I don't mean that in a depressing, sad way. Like, I think it can be quite freeing depending on how you look at it. We spend so much time replaying these conversations in our heads. I do it all the time. If you've been listening, like we're always wondering if we sounded rude or if there was something we could have said better to explain ourselves, if we should have worded something differently, if someone is mad at us because they used a period instead of an exclamation mark in a text message. Like, meanwhile, they're probably like at Costco, like eating the sample cookies somewhere. Seriously, like we are the main characters in our stories, but we are supporting characters in everyone else's. And once you realize that, you stop wasting so much energy trying to manage everyone else's perception of you. And who gives a flying fuck what everyone else is thinking about you anyway? Like again, we're gonna bring social media into this because like it has made auditioning even worse because we're exposed to everyone else's opinions. Their quick comments, their little jabs, their DMs. Like it feels like we've been tricked into believing that every decision we make requires this public approval. Like, should I quit my job? We'll put up a little poll. What will people think if I quit my job? Should I move to another city? What will my family say? Should I start a business? What if I fail? Should I post a photo? Is it weird? Like, what should the caption be? Who gives a flying fuck? Is it cringe? We become so afraid of judgment that sometimes we don't even realize we're making decisions based on avoiding criticism online. Instead, we should be pursuing joy. That is such a sad way to live if you're worried about what everyone else is going to say about you online or not. Like, fear is a terrible life coach. I remember a time in my own life when I started making decisions that didn't make sense to anyone around me. Nobody got it. Changing careers, pursuing more creative work, building a podcast, like get moving into this new apartment that I live in, taking all kinds of trips, like taking risks that didn't come with guaranteed paychecks or traditional career paths. There were definitely people who didn't understand it. Some probably still don't. And for a while, I spent quite a bit of time and energy trying to explain myself. Like, I wanted everyone to understand why I was doing what I was doing, because if they understood, then maybe they would approve and I would feel more comfortable. And eventually I realized something that was like pretty liberating was that I don't actually need unanimous approval to build a life that makes me happy. And that is a weird realization when you've spent years believing your own decisions needed to survive a committee vote from your friends, your family, your coworkers before you were allowed to even make those decisions. I'm having a hard time saying decisions for some reason. Okay, but I have another uncomfortable truth, okay? We're moving on from decisions. Sometimes the people who are most upset by your boundaries are not upset because you've done something wrong. They're upset because your boundaries changed the role that they have assigned to you. If you've always been the reliable one who says yes, they're going to notice when you start saying no. If you've always answered every phone call immediately, they're going to notice when you don't. If you've always put everyone else's needs ahead of your own, some people may genuinely struggle when you stop. And that does not automatically mean that your boundaries are unhealthy. It often just means the relationship is adjusting to a new version of you. And healthy relationships adapt. Unhealthy ones protest because they preferred the version of you that was easier to access, that made life easy for them. One of the biggest fears people have when they stop people pleasing is that they're afraid they're going to lose people. And if I'm being honest with you, sometimes you might. I said it, I did too. But what I've also learned is that if the only version of you someone loves is the version that never has needs or never says no or never disappoints them or never butts heads with them or never has a conflicting opinion or never chooses themselves, they don't actually love the real you. They love the version of you that was most convenient for them. And what is that? Honey, that is selfish. They are selfish. And I know that's hard to hear for some, but it's also very freeing because it allows you to stop measuring the health of a relationship by how comfortable the other motherfucker feels. Okay. The other person feels. I was thinking about someone specific. Pardon me. Healthy relationships make room for both people's needs. They do not require one person to disappear completely so the other can thrive. So I want to leave you with something to think about before we move on to the final segment here. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and just for one day, nobody expected anything from you. Nobody needed a favor. Nobody needed advice. Nobody needed you to solve a problem or make a decision or carry their emotional baggage. And you had one entire day where your only responsibility was to live it in whatever way felt most authentic to you. And what would you do? Where would you go? Who would you want to spend time with? What would you finally admit that you've been wanting all along? Because I have a suspicion that the answer to those questions isn't random. It's a glimpse of the life that you've probably quietly been trying to build underneath all of the expectations that you have spent years carrying for everyone else. And maybe it's time to stop auditioning for a role you were never meant to play and start becoming the person that you've been all along. Part 5. Your life is yours. Start living it. Do it. Start living it, okay? I want to end today's episode with something that, again, might sound a little heavy, but honestly, I think about it all the time. I guess maybe I don't need to say I think about it all the time because everything I talk about on here, I think about it all the time. That's why I'm talking about it. But imagine you're 85 years old. You have lived an entire life. You're sitting on your porch somewhere, hopefully with a cocktail in your hand because, like, you've earned it. You're looking back over everything that you've done. What do you actually regret? What do you think you'll actually regret? Do you really think you're going to sit there and say, like, God, I really wished I answered more emails at 5 p.m. or like, I can't believe I only worked 45 hours a week instead of 60. Or like maybe I should have gone to Susan's baby shower, even though I didn't know Susan and spent the whole afternoon pretending to enjoy a diaper cake. Like, no, none of us are going to think about that. And yet, that's exactly how so many of us are living. We make huge life decisions based on avoiding tiny moments of discomfort instead of creating a life we'll actually be proud to look back on. One of the most famous studies on regret came from a palliative care nurse named Bronnie Ware, who spent years caring for people at the end of their lives. And she noticed the same regrets coming up over and over again, regardless of age, career, or background. And do you know what the number one regret was? I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life that others expected of me. Mm. Nobody wished that they had made more people happy. Nobody was wishing that they'd made themselves more available or that they'd sacrificed more of themselves. The biggest regret was realizing that they had spent too much of their lives trying to meet everyone else's expectations while quietly ignoring their own. And, like, honestly, rereading that, like, makes me emotional, like, it kind of wrecks me, and especially the first time I read it because I realized how easy it is to drift into that kind of life without ever making a conscious decision to drift into that life. Nobody wakes up in the morning and is like, "You know what? I think I'm gonna spend the next 30 years ignoring my own needs." It just happens slowly, and it is natural. It happens to all of us. Like, one yes becomes another, one compromise becomes a habit. You stay in the relationship a little longer, you stay in the job another year, you keep saying you're gonna travel someday, like, or you're gonna start the business one day, you're gonna move someday, have the difficult conversation someday, prioritize yourself someday. Like, before you know it, someday has quietly turned into 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and that someday has come and gone. You don't have any more some days to do that shit. We have got to stop treating our own happiness like it's a reward that we're going to earn after we've made everyone else comfortable. Like, how many times have you told yourself, once this project is finished, dot, 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 or once my boss is less stressed, then dot, dot, dot. Once my parents understand, maybe I will do. Once my kids are older, I can start doing. Once everything settles down, then maybe I will. Then, then after all that, what? You're going to finally do the thing that you actually wanted to do all along? Can I lovingly ruin that fucking fantasy for you? Life never settles down, okay? Ever. There isn't some magical Tuesday where the universe sends you an email saying, congratulations. Everyone's happy now. You're not going to be stressed out anymore. You've settled into your new schedule, or you have some free time. You're officially allowed to start living your life. That doesn't happen. There will always be another obligation, another expectation, another person who needs something from you. And if you're waiting until nobody is disappointed before you choose yourself, you're going to be waiting forever. It's never going to happen. And something I wish that I had learned years ago is that every decision you make disappoints someone. Seriously, if you stay late at work, maybe your partner is going to be disappointed that you missed your dinner plans with them. If you leave work on time so that you can go to those dinner plans, your boss might be disappointed that you didn't stay. If you spend Christmas with one side of the family, the other side's going to be left out. If you move across the country to chase your dream, hello, me, the people that you love are probably going to miss you, and some of them are going to resent you forever. Like, there is literally no version of life where every single person gets exactly what they want from you. It does not exist. It will not exist. It's never a possibility. So if disappointment is inevitable, then maybe the better question isn't like, how do I make sure nobody's disappointed? Maybe the better question is, whose disappointment am I willing to live with? And frankly, that should be everyone's, as long as you're not disappointed in yourself. Because one of those people somebody has to be disappointed. Either it's everyone else occasionally, or it's you every single day. And that question is going to change the way you make decisions. For a long time, I was choosing my own disappointment over everyone else's. I would rather be exhausted than to let someone down. I'd rather stay quiet than to risk conflict. I'd rather carry stress than have someone think I was difficult. And on the surface, that looked incredibly selfless. But underneath it all, it was fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear that if I stopped being useful, maybe people wouldn't value me anymore. And the beautiful thing is, the more that I have challenged that fear, the more I've realized that the people who actually love me and get me and are there for me have not gone anywhere. In fact, many of those relationships have actually become stronger because they're based on honesty now instead of performance. And really, I kind of think that's what this entire episode has been about. It's not about becoming selfish. It's not about saying no to everything or walking around acting like nobody else's feelings matter. That is not emotional maturity. That's just being an asshole, if I'm being frank. Emotional maturity is caring about people without abandoning yourself. And it's understanding that you can be kind without being available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year. You can also be compassionate without fixing everyone else's problems. You can love your family while making decisions that they may disagree with, they may not understand, they may be mad at you for, but you're prioritizing yourself. You can appreciate your job while recognizing it's time to leave your job. You can disappoint people and still be a good person. Those ideas can all exist together, even though your people pleasing brain has spent years convincing you that they cannot. So, I want to leave you with one final exercise, and I do hope that you do this one. I think it has the potential to change the course of your life because I'm a lifesaver. Okay, but really, grab a piece of paper, make 2 columns, 1, 2. At the top of the first one, you're going to write the life I'm living. At the top of the second one, you're going to write the life I actually want. Then you got to be brutally honest with yourself. What are you tolerating in the first column? What are you dreaming about in the second column? Don't censor yourself. Don't write what sounds responsible or realistic. Write what's true. Then look at those 2 columns and ask yourself one final question. What decision have I been avoiding because I'm afraid of disappointing someone? And I have a feeling you probably already know the answer. You probably knew it before you press play on this episode. Maybe you don't act on it tomorrow. Maybe you don't act on it next week. Maybe at least now you know what fear has been costing you. Like, for example, I'm going to do this for myself. So, for example, in the life I'm living column, one of the things I might put there is that one of my marketing clients underpays me. That's the life I'm living, but I'm not happy about it, okay? And the life I actually want is to be paid accordingly and, you know, meet the industry standard for the amount of work that I am doing and feel good about that income that's coming in. That's the life I actually want. But the question that I'm avoiding or the thing I don't want to do is making somebody else uncomfortable by asking for a raise. I did know that before I even started recording or pressing play on this episode. So there you have it. Because, like, really, at the end of the day, this is your life. It's not your boss's fucking life. It's not your parents' fucking life. It's not your friend's fucking life. It's not society's. It is yours. And you only get one time. And it goes by quick. I'm about to be 38 in a few days. My birthday's on Wednesday, the day after this comes out. And I was like, damn, I'm going to be 38? In 32 years, I'm going to be 70. That's fucking nuts. I think that's math, but, like, you only get one shot at this weird, messy, beautiful experience of being alive one time and you're donezos unless you believe in reincarnation. But, like, don't spend your life trying to earn permission to become the person you already know that you are. The people who truly love you, they will adjust and suck it the fuck up. The people who don't were probably benefiting from you, and you don't want them around anyway. Choose yourself because they never wanted you to choose yourself in the first place. And if this episode gives you permission to do one thing, it is to stop asking for permission. You never needed it. Your life has belonged to you from the very, very beginning. Your life is not meant to be a full time customer service job for everyone else's expectations. Caring about people is good. Being compassionate is good. Showing up for the people you love is good. But none of those things should require or overpower your want to abandon yourself. Your worth is not determined by how available you are. You're not a better employee because you sacrifice your mental health, and you are not a better friend because you never say no. And you're not a better son or daughter or partner or sibling because you spend your entire life making sure that everyone else is comfortable while quietly becoming absolutely miserable yourself. Again, the truth is, people can be disappointed. They're allowed to do that. They're allowed to disagree with your choices. They're allowed to wish you had made a different decision. And none of that automatically means you have done something wrong. Choosing yourself can feel very uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar to most of us. It's not selfish. And if you remember nothing else from this episode, you can be a kind person without being a people pleaser, and you can care deeply about others without carrying their emotional baggage. And you can build a life that honors your own happiness without needing permission from everyone around you. And as always, if today's episode resonated with you, make sure you are following me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod. Don't forget that I also have a second podcast out called Screaming that is once a month that discovers, talks about, dives into all the horror, spooky news, movies. Maybe there might be a little true crime in there, upcoming TV shows, maybe rediscovering my favorite horror movies. I mean, only one episode is out now, so who knows where it will go. But also visit my website, hotairwithjoshuarobert.com, to shop my merch, submit your listener stories and topic suggestions. And thank you again for spending time with me today. And stop asking for permission to live your life. Just go fucking live it, okay? Do what you want. You're only here one time. Make people feel bad as long as you feel good. No, that's the opposite of what this episode was about. But I think you've known me long enough. You know what I mean. Focus in on you for a hot minute. Make decisions that make you feel good as long as you're not, running anybody over with your car or committing a crime. Also, because it's my birthday on Wednesday, share this. My birthday present from you is that you are going to share this episode with everyone you know. I'm into it, okay? I hope you all learned a little bit of something today and you make a few decisions this week that are all about you, that make you happy, that lower your stress levels, that support your mental health. And I will see you next Tuesday. HOTAIR, hot takes therapy, no filter. Say what I mean. HOTAIR, let's be real. You're listening to Hot Air.